But and there's a lot going on right now about conversational AI. In fact, we are kind of dealing with the blowback of hype cycles industry probably like 20 years, 20, 30 years right now. And I think it is an inflection point for us as both as an industry and as a society of how we look at information automation, um, supporting human expertise, human knowledge, and using it to give a cut rate version of that experience to both customers and people who are working at organizations. Um, you'll hear a lot about that in these office hours, and we'll talk about generative AI. I don't it provides, but I do think there's a lot to be machine learning and automation of information workflows that can benefit the worker and the organization and customers alike. We focus on these solutions that kind of solve the of concerns. So first thing I'm going to do is kind of check around to see if there's any questions before we begin. Otherwise, I'm going to get to work. Today, I'm going to be working on, we have a public reading library. Let me pull that guy. And look at our lovely website. As always, a work in progress, but in our website, we have a bunch of statements about how we believe and how we work. Um, and you can sign up both for these office hours. We accept people to come on the call and show us their project. And this is a service we normally charge for, but we feel that it's important for people to come. So you can just come on over to the office hours page. If you are watching this here, you can watch this here. Let me fix that. Doo-doo-doo. Start working out all the kinks. We are kind of like, as always, we do as much as we can with the resources we are given. Um, and it's still kind of interesting how we're learning things. So let's turn this guy on while we're waiting for that to go. So yeah, we have services. This kind of calls our want to talk on the chat, or we can just kind of get into it and help you build it. I think like it's really important to what your goals are because um, let's talk about the difference between a conversational AI chatbot agent, whatever, and a person, right? You hire a person based on their expertise and the way they comport themselves and all the things that you get for free, right? Because you're renting their time. And and that is the entirety of the world experiences and how they handle things. And you tell them how you like to work, and they take that most incredible problem matching computer in the history of the world, the human brain, and apply it to that. And they do what you want through the lens of what they know is effective, right? Agents can never, ever, 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 ever hope to compete with this. Even if you burn all the world's money on sucking down a one copy of the internet, um, they're just something that is unique about a human individuality and expertise that will never be replicated. So um, and this is kind of like the rabbit hole we're chasing after because okay, fine. Everything bots are expensive and don't exist, right? Um, who does it benefit to sell the chase for one? And that's the compute vendors. That is the model makers. Um, it doesn't benefit organizations. It doesn't benefit individual people. Um, so, like, you invest in this very expensive thing, An API call is pennies on the dollar, to get an API call. A AI magnitudes higher per request. Um, and it doesn't actually do decision making, right? You can tell it like your logic in the prompt, and you can explain your business logic, and it will like the creature, the thing, the titular thing from the movie, The Thing. It can do a uncanny valley simulacrum of that experience, but it isn't cognizant of what it's doing. It doesn't understand the repercussions or the person on the other line or the company values or any of that stuff. It is just mocking experiences that it's seen in the corpus of information, which is mostly Reddit and Wikipedia and whatever public sources. And so you are very good at a couple different tasks. And these are the problems that are kind of solved today. One is like summarization. I have a huge website. I'm going to give you a 3 sentences description of what's on a huge website. That's a TLDR. That works good. We can classify intents better. You know, but we had pretty good intent classifying technology in the last generation that was much cheaper, right? Um, so we take the summarization engine, we take the intent classification. They're inherently multimodal. Multimodal meaning it works in text and voice, and you can show it a picture and all those things, and it sucked all that up. So we got a machine that can understand a wish, an intention. It can see a picture for context. You can use RAG patterns to uh, have a corpus of information to constrain the possible results against. And those would include personal data and company data. So that's the other thing to worry about is like these things require a lot of contextual information, i.e., your personal data. So in order to get it to work well and give cogent responses, you have to constantly feed it a stream of ambient data. I'm Peter Swim, I'm 45, I'm a father, I live in the Pacific Northwest, et cetera, et cetera. And it goes out into the world, and we trust these models to manage it and not to end up in our models for training and all that. So there are a lot of considerations involved, and I think secondly, it's hard to measure what's happening. Like you can't tell. Like it's you're sending your customers and your coworkers and all these people into these conversations with these simulacrums, these agents, and you don't really get a good sense of was it successful? Did something bad happen? Did something unpleasant happen? What was the customer's experience, the client's experience, your coworkers' experience in these things? So, like I said, we can help you kind of wrap your head around these problems, set a roadmap for safe testing and a gradual exploration of these tools that won't blow up the bank. And my fervent hope and wish is to give you the tools to evaluate these things themselves and to put me out of business. So if enough people buy my services, I will happily peace out and watch you guys succeed from afar. So one of the resources I get for free is this office hours. Um, and I also have a reading library. And this is like, people ask me like, how do you stay up on these things, right? And the thing is, like, it's hard, so I have to read a lot. So every day I'm reading stuff and I'm classifying it, and anything that's good, I'm throwing here in a reading library. And so you can go to Toilville, it's toilville.com, and click on the reading room under the library, and take a look at yourself in your spare time. And it's still, if it's too much, then book some time with me and we'll kind of talk about them. I love discussing praxis and cogency and things of that nature. So I'm going to take a pause and take a look at our chats. And we have chats here. Enjoy my green screen. Thanks. I'm trying different ways of running these webinars and presentations. So expect a lot of fluidity as we uh, kind of go down this milestone. One thing I'll have to check is the quality of the chat later. We'll get into different things you can do to do that. Um, I might play with this real quick. All right. We're just going to put a nice little bit of compression on this, to make sure I'm not clipping. So we'll see if the audio is better at this point. I'll just do a thumb sign to find it in the video later. So let us take, I think probably the best thing to do today is you may notice that I have a bunch of inspirational stuff to do on the office hours reading room. So let's just kind of go through them and uh, we'll kind of talk about more about how these things are affecting us and how it seems to be changing on a day-to-day basis. Mhm. And the first thing that we got to do, all right, so let's take a look at event here. Get ready, you. All right. So I am behind in my reading, so I will kind of go through these and let's just talk real quick about this is a really interesting paper. Um, so Microsoft Research. So Microsoft Research is kind of like they get a lot of people, and full disclosure, I've worked at Microsoft for the last 4 years. I've had two companies that have been acquired by Microsoft. So I've been working with them a long time, better part of 15 years. And this is kind of like how they do stuff. Uh, they have a research wing that kind of like investigates the efficacy of their products, and they'll get pull quotes from those, and they'll throw them into their product specs and decks and keynotes, and trumpet that as thought leadership. So this is a really interesting paper, though, that I think is like by Pivot to AI, who is a really great blog if you want to check them out. They have a really good handle on the pitfalls and stuff in this industry, and they're a good thing to balance from all the stuff you do. So the one thing I do is I tag these things so they're in a section. Um, Really great article. You should check that out. Um, this is another kind of evolving story that I think is super important to people who build these tools. Um, the um, let's see what we got here. One second, I think someone's trying to get in, so let me see if I got them. So good question here from Ben in the chat. We are experimenting with different models. I think the hardest thing that we're trying to do right now is develop a methodology that is model agnostic, right? Because uh, I think model providers want to become utilities. They want to become the gas company and the electric company. So you just pay for one and you get everything. And I think the truth of the matter is that there's going to be a bunch of different use cases and vendors for different type of technologies. So you may start out with like a model that is a wide branching open AI kind of thing that like is like zeroes you in onto specific task. So yeah, I feel like, and this is kind of harkening back to the pitches of things like Rasa, was really a big fan of this back in the day when you had to build. So every single turn would have a model, and I think it's gonna be somewhere in the middle where there's giant. Think of those as like the think of those as like the think of those models as kind of like the Google search engine, and so everyone wants to replace Google, including themselves, and that kind of gets you in the lane. Um, Gets you in the lane of doing things, and then individual models and machine learning stuff is going to be doing down the chain for tap. So I think back to the pitch of what agents are, right? And this is why I think agents aren't real and they won't be real for a while. But like the idea of an agent, and this behooves the big model makers like OpenAI and the like, is that you come to the oracle on the mountain and um, you say, oh my gosh, I missed my flight this morning because I overslept and my cat needs to have surgery and I need to get a new flight because I need to be in Dallas by 3:15 because I'm not at 3:15, then I need to take a cab. And if I don't get there in time, I'll be late for my appointment. And so that is a huge mess of a wish. And the big models like, okay, I'll slot all these things, blah, 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 blah. So cool. So you took a complex problem and you broke it down to discrete elements, and the agent's supposed to like know. It's like okay, we need to access the flight booking API. We have to access the cab booking API. We need to access the doctor's office API to see if we can rebook. Way to do this, and it's supposed to automatically happen. And it's so impossibly far from the reality of what these things are and what they do, uh, that it's almost laughable, right? And so And then the other artifact, like if I go into Salesforce's agent platform, I'm going to know all the agents that are in the entire org. And so whatever agent you make will be able to talk to other agents and do work on your behalf and coordinate and and delegate expertise and all that. And that is so impossibly far from the reality of what's happening that you're kind of like, as a user, it's a real sticker shock because you're paying a lot for these things and it still can't do it. So we take the complexity and we hit it behind this AI front show. And then there's just still information workers in the background that are struggling to put them together, right? So like, um, so yeah, we go into these articles, and there's actually the lack of things and the to the point of like uh, when things are happening right now in government and stuff like that. They are, those I struggle to maintain composure saying stupid organization's acronym, but like Doge is making the pitches that we can make more efficient government through AI, quote unquote, and AI being a laundry list of things that people can understand or not. But in the process of doing so, they're also preemptively attacking that expertise that resides in the organization, right? Um, and so, and I think we'll see a lot of bad choices like this in AI, where like, okay, you have a contact center and you have 250 people because they have to answer the fall call because your product has gaps where unhappy things happen. Orders of ships, things are like done. And of course, in every single attempt, there's something that you can automate. But there's also like arbitration, advocacy, and agency that these people represent to your company, where is your bottom line and is what makes your value prop sustainable, right? So like, you come to the front desk and you tell the guy at McDonald's, like, oh, my burger is cold. All right. You just give him a new burger. Do you do that once or twice or 30 times? That's your business logic, right? But like a human is able to technically say, oh, I know this person. He comes in here every day. This is the first complaint. He's had 80 interactions. He's a good guy. I'm going to take him on his word, even if I don't believe him or whatever, and just give him the stuff. AI kind of dramatically like closes the doors on these pleasant interactions in the favor of the maker of the AI. So what we're probably going to see here is Doge will replace things with AI and have people come up with the five things they did yesterday and feed into a prompt and have the prompt whack-a-mole out who are the bad ones and the good prompts and make decisions based on that. And decision making is not, there's no cognition in the AI model, and there's no like tracking of, you know, did the person just like write a bad prompt or whatever, like the onus is really of the people going through these systems to justify their existence, and they're not being fairly judged, right? So I think we're seeing a lot of things in real time play out that should have played out over months and possibly years of evaluation and technology, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, he also sells these models. He is like completely non-neutral in the in decisions to use this technology. So this is kind of like going to become a very quickly evolving situation. And unfortunately, like human lives have already been impacted, and they will continue to be impacted for the short term without thing. Um, I'm going to take a look at my questions because I've been talking for a bit. Sorry, Ben. I see your chat, but it kicked me out. And I think to the point of the previous article, we really do need to experiment with different models, and we need to have a governance system in place that can evaluate and vet decisions of these models. Because, like the famous IBM slide says, like if a machine can't experience consequences for its decisions, it shouldn't be allowed to make them. So let's kind of go. Articles. This is a very interesting article that was like surprisingly controversial. Um, this is kind of Roost is a technology that is using AI um, to do a very hard problem in social media, which is kind of the investigation and moderation of social networks, especially with regards to um, illegal content like CSAM and that's you know. Illegal pornography and things that are abusive of people and all that stuff like that. And the way that social media companies have fought this for years, and this is like what organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children do bravely and at great risk of themselves, is kind of evaluate and view technology and try to find one, identifying the victims of these of this technology, and also like you know alert authorities and legal officials to do that, and also make sure it doesn't propagate on the social network. So, um, so Roost is funded by some of the biggest perpetrators of the problem. There's Meta, uh, OpenAI, Discord, Roblox, of all things, and you know we've been so whipped around by big tech in the last few years, is that 50% of the people who work in these fields and like are grateful to have the funding and the support from these organizations, and the other 50% are like the foxes running the hen house. Like Roblox arguably a toxic company, and Google is arguably a toxic company at this point. OpenAI is arguably a toxic company, and to take their money, and like punk rock ethic sort of way, it is distasteful, right? So I think like what we need to do is kind of like keep an eye on this thing, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the where's the oversight, who's watching the Watchmen, and things of that nature. So one to track It's a really good effort to see because this is a hard problem in tech, and if technology can make things better for information workers or the people who evaluate these things, obviously it should be explored. But it isn't by no means a panacea right now, and you know, it's one to keep an eye on. Um, so, Safer Internet Day. This is something coming up. Very happened last week, and so this was kind of like where this Roost announcement came out of, right? Where a bunch of these companies and they're arguing like what are like things they can do to make things safe for people of all ages and backgrounds and identities. Um, it's nice to see, but a lot of these companies who are trumping it are also like laying off their DEI teams and things like that nature. So I think it's very interesting to see like these companies like paying the lip service but not doing the investments. So uh, read this one, very interesting. Um, OpenAI boss is saying virtual employees can join the workplace as soon as this year, and I'm sure I'm sure glad he thinks so because it's probably crucial to his company's roadmap that this happens. And I think like what you need to do as a person who buys this technology or someone who works in this technology is think about like what is join the workforce mean, right? And I think you got to think about like how the droid, is working in your organization. Is this droid the head? Are you? Is it going to be your boss, or are you its boss, or are you partners with it? So I think like it's always good to see like what they're building because it's a clue onto what they want to build, but also like firmly under the hype category for now. And the other things I like to read is resources. PowerCat, their organization in Copilot Studio in the Microsoft org, and they do a fantastic job of being kind of like developer relations and also like best practice, and also like they find bugs and they get features fixed. And there's a recent feature in Copilot Studio that's called Component Collection, and I love this feature so much because basically. People talk about like I want a bot to rule them all, or I want bot the bot communications, and what they really want is what component collections provides, which is the ability to standardize processes and then advertise it to other experiences in your organization. So imagine bot one, you have uh, lives on your website, and you can chat at it, and it has a really good user lookup flow, and you want to reuse it in the customer service call center bot, and so you just publish it and send it over to the other bot, and boom, you have the same flow and the same integration, and you're advertising it across different organizations. And until like the agent arbitration workflow things works, this is a really good pattern to use that I recommend for my clients. They've also come up with this cool little app source thing called the Copilot Studio Kit, and it's basically like all the missing features from Copilot Studio that you wish you needed when you went into production. So, like, they have a better uh, testing tools. There's really like no way in Copilot Studio natively to do A/B testing. So they do that. They have better KPIs. I know they're doing a lot of work in Copilot Studio to improve analytics and metrics, but they're like showing you how you can build your own because there always will be a delta between what Copilot Studio thinks is the important metrics and what your business does. So, um, and finally, SharePoint. A lot of the scenarios at Microsoft Copilot Studio are around SharePoint and using SharePoint as like a knowledge source to one both data warehouse, all the information your organization knows, but also like police access to data that is role based, right? So I'm the CEO, so I should have financial data that my middle management doesn't, and middle management should have data that the frontline shouldn't have. And so, and this is also like very good to Microsoft's bottom line because uh, once everyone has a seat in 365, you log in with your credentials, and the Copilot will entirely build a context based on your level of access and all that. So in practice, it could be flaky, right? Because SharePoint, surprise, surprise, is not a super performant uh, searchable index of public knowledge. And I think this is kind of like SharePoint's probably chosen because of its compliance aspects, but more than its performance aspects. So they're struggling with ingestion and getting things to work right, and the quality results, and also the model summarization and all that. So they give you tools in this PowerCat thing that help you um, kind of get to the bottom of things. So let's see. Um, this is a really important thing, and this is a labor issue, right? Because we think of AI as a content provider problem, but actually, everyone in an organization is a content producer, right? So if I am working in the company and I'm providing value to the company in terms of my hours paid. In my employee contract, it should stipulate, and it probably will at some point, that everything I make it's owned by the company, therefore attributes to the model. Um, and it kind of gives you interesting insight to like, is this like the future of like pensions, right? Where okay, I worked for a company for 30 years and 20% of the AI model's content is built on my work. Uh, should I receive a cut of future value from it? These are kind of things that uh, I think we should start tracking as a society and keep an eye on. So, like, this is more about the relying on AI kills your critical thinking skill. And I think, like, you know, I'm of two minds, and I read the paper, and so and basically the paper postulates is like the faster you work as an information worker, the longer, the less you linger on your decisions, and the greater the chance that you'll make bad decisions. And I think that is true, right? Like the model is kind of like summarizing things, and they may summarize things in a way that are what you want to hear, right? Like, and they may not be summarizing in a model that's accurate, that reflects the accuracy of the situation. So we kind of go back to the Doge. What are the five bolt things you're working on, right? And so the model gives you a conclusion based that may not represent the whole truth, right? And so I think kind of going back to understanding the model and figuring out like, you know, do I trust this, or can I verify it, or is there a layer I can dig into to question the data? I think it's going to be super important, and no one's building anything like that yet. So like, oh yeah, Gary Marcus is kind of like a big voice in the field. He is mostly pro tech, um, and of course, like in the pro tech circles, he seems like he's very critical, and in the critical circles, he seems to be too embedded with tech. But this is a very good read if you want to get into the critical theory and understand how things go. Um, this is another thing. Um, there's a lot of talk about using AI for soft skills. Like uh, someone to talk to combat loneliness, and I think it's very interesting and troubling in a way, right? Because um, you're building a relationship with the entity that's in fact built on a fallacy, right? So these are things I keep track on, and I think it's something that we should all kind of consider when we build anything, especially like you're tempted to build a chatbot that is like empathetic and understands you, but it's a lie, right? And I think if you expose that lie, there's going to be a betrayal, and you know. And then it comes down to this, like there's a research paper that people can't this is actually a direct follow-up to the other thing where people can't tell the difference between a LM response and a therapist response. And I think that kind of goes to like therapists don't say what they say because the person wants to hear them. They say them because they need to be said, right? And so if a model says it because it's the most likely response to the input of a person they said, um, but a trained therapist can understand that the implication of what they say have profound impacts on the patient they're giving care to. So which one is a better advocate for the patient receiving care? And I think like this is something that's very uh, ill suited for that purpose. And it may say things that make people feel better and all that, but it's not therapy, right? Therapy is like an interrogation of, the self and how you exist in the world and all your experiences and how you're constructed, right? So I think like, I think when you're picking use cases, you should carefully consider um, the impact on how you present things and the things you're talking about. Like right now, I'm working for a customer who is building a front desk co-pilot for veterinary care, and one of the topics is about when to decide to do put your animal in the palliative care, to put the animal in euthanasia, and like there's things that are the polite thing to say, but like you don't want to like I tell this to the client, you don't want to get into a protracted conversation about what it means to be alive and what it means to experience loss and things of that nature. Because uh, if you're mildly successful, the betrayal's mild, and if you're wildly successful, then the betrayal is wild. Like it's something that you don't really want to like bet against the house on. We got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to go look around for some more questions, and then we'll kind of go through a couple more articles. Oh yeah, I'm doing lots of stuff like this, but it doesn't belong here. Um, oh, this is a really important thing to talk about. Um, so there, right now, a lot of the things, and you go back to the Roost article. Um, the reason that the tech companies are very interested in solving the sexual abuse media content problem is because the EU AI Act is coming for them, right? And I think like self-regulation is their only hope of getting under like incredibly like onerous uh, re- legislation. And so if the industry doesn't do this, the EU will. And we've seen with like things like the EUDB that could have a profound impact on how we work as tech companies and uh, something to really keep an eye on. And a lot of these things are giving ideas to lawmakers in the US. And like I think right now there's 11 US states considering AI bills, and they range in very definite and to like amorphous things. There was a bill that was passed in Colorado, and the problem with the bill that passed in Colorado is that they have no concept of enforcement or measurement or understanding what they've put in a law. So these are out there and creating risk for people building these tools. Um, and they're things that, like, as organizations, you should really pay attention and quickly consider going into those things. We got about 9 minutes left. Yeah. Thank you for people doing the with the YouTube problems. We're working into it. What I'll do is I'll upload a copy of this, and you can watch this on demand on our website later. But let's take a look. Mhm. All right. Google or tags. We'll probably have to give a tag just for friends Doge because they're going to be super important to keep an eye on going forward. Either it's going to be a model for how organizations are free to act, or it's going to be a cautionary tale for future things. Hoping personally that it's the latter. But it's very telling. Like if you saw how Twitter was destroyed by Musk, seeing the same process going into to the U.S. government is kind of disconcerting. And this is kind of more about uh, very interesting thought piece by Bianca Wiley about you know what we're trying to do. And I think like that is totally in a nutshell where the people that are selling AI technologies are people make money off consumption, right? And they're not like Microsoft, OpenAI, and Gemini folks don't make more money if you get the answer quicker, right? They get more answer on turning out the sludge of the content and stuff like that. So, um, important thing to keep a note on as you're building these things of what your goal should be, and you shouldn't be justifying the purchase. You should be improving the product. And I think this is a labor issue, also a copyright issue. And I think this kind of goes into New York Times. They know that people are scraping them, and they know New York Times data is in these models, and they're trying to get ahead of it, right? And I think like as they should, right? The New York Times owns its content, and it pays its writers, and they have an arrangement, and they should be able to be a source of expertise and content. So I wish them luck. I had problems with New York Times on a personal level, but I think and it'd be great if like the Writers Guild actually took this up, and I love to hear if anyone's familiar in this space. I'd love to talk to you more about that. And around this time, it happened. The Guardian also did a, and we'll end today with this one. The Arc of AI accountability. I think this is like the hugest problem set that has not been solved in our time. Like being able to figure out like I had this experience in a bot. I went to the city of New York Microsoft Copilot that they built for the city of New York, and they told me to do crimes. You know, who is responsible for that? Is it Microsoft? Is it the city of New York? Is it me for believing a dumb thing I read on a website? I think all of this is going to come into play, and it's something to be very cognizant about as you're building these tools. So, all right. Um, I like that. I think that was fun. Um, we're going to be hanging out some more Tuesdays from now on. Thank you for people who are reporting the technical issues. We'll get a handle on that and see how we can improve that going forward. But otherwise, appreciate everyone and see you next week. And don't forget, you can reach out to us on our website. It's toyville.com. You can email me directly at hello, it's toyville.com, or there's a contact form there. And love to hear what you're working on. Cool. Catch you next time, everyone.